This is examples G through L on the 11.3 notes. We are continuing to find the missing side in right triangles using sine, cosine, and tangent. So on example G, we are going to identify which sides are involved in the problem. So I find the right angle, and the side across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. So 10 is the hypotenuse. And I look and see which angle is involved here. That's the 56 degrees. And the x is across from that. That means x is opposite in this problem. Opposite and hypotenuse, I look to see, well, is that sine, cosine, or tangent? Opposite and hypotenuse would be sine. So, opposite and hypotenuse. Go ahead and write the equation. Sine of the angle, 56 degrees, equals, opposite always goes on top with sine. So opposite is x. To tell which one goes on top, you look at the definition. Which one's opposite? Whichever one's opposite goes on top. Hypotenuse goes on bottom. So hypotenuse is 10. So to decide how to solve the equation, you look at, is x on top or is x on bottom? If x is on top, it's the easier equation to solve. All you have to do is multiply by both sides by whatever's on bottom. So I multiply both sides by 10, and I get x is 10 times the sine of 56 degrees, which is about 8.3. Next problem looks like across from the hypotenuse is not labeled, so across from the right angle's hypotenuse, which isn't labeled. So we will be dealing with opposite and adjacent here. Here's my angle. Really important to decide which of the angles you're looking at, because opposite and adjacent depend on which angle you're focused on. The x is across from that angle, so x is opposite, and the 17 is right next to that angle, so 17 is adjacent. Opposite and adjacent, TOA, tangent. Tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So the tangent of the angle, 62 degrees, equals, which one goes on top? Opposite. Opposite on this problem is x. Over adjacent in this problem is 17. Multiply both sides by 17. So x is about 17 tangent 62 degrees. Which is about 32.0. Now when the triangle is really skinny like this, it's very easy to get adjacent and hypotenuse mixed up. So make sure that you are careful to know which side's which. I always start with hypotenuse. Find the right angle and it points right at the hypotenuse. X is the hypotenuse here. And we're focused on this angle, and the 20 is right next to it. X is right next to it too, but X is across from the right angle, so X has to be hypotenuse. 20 is adjacent. It's so easy to get those mixed up. They look like they're almost the same length, but not quite. So be really, really careful when the triangle is really skinny like this, because it can be hard to tell which one's hypotenuse. Adjacent and hypotenuse, that's cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Cosine of 18 degrees equals, which one's on top? Adjacent is on top. Adjacent is 20 over hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is X. X is on the bottom of this equation. That means I need 2 steps to solve it. First, X has to get out of the bottom of the fraction. So multiply both sides by X. Get X times the cosine of 18 degrees equals 20. Then divide both sides by the cosine of 18 degrees. So you get X equals 20 divided by cosine of 18 degrees. So X is about 21.0. All right, let's look at the last 3 problems. J, we have right angle right here. Across from that's the hypotenuse, which isn't labeled, so this one will involve opposite and adjacent. We're focused on the bottom angle down there. Across from that angle is 15, so 15's opposite. And the X is right next to it, so that's adjacent. Which one involves opposite and adjacent? TOA, tangent. Tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So tangent of the angle is 57 degrees equals, which side goes on top? Opposite over adjacent will go on bottom. So opposite is 15. Adjacent is X. X is on the bottom, so it's a 2-step algebra problem. Multiply both sides by X to get X out of the bottom. X times the tangent of 57 degrees equals 15. Then divide both sides by tangent of 57 degrees. So you get X equals 15 over tangent 57 degrees, which is about 9.7. Example K, here's your right angle. Across from the right angle is the hypotenuse, which is 15. We're focused on the 43-degree angle right here at the top, and the x is right next to that angle, so x is adjacent. Which function involves adjacent and hypotenuse? That would be cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. The cosine of the angle, 43 degrees, equals which side goes on top? Adjacent. Adjacent in this case is x over hypotenuse. Hypotenuse in this case is 15. Multiply both sides by 15. And you get that x is 15 times the cosine of 43 degrees, which is about 11.0. And our last example is example L. So we'll cross from the right angle as the hypotenuse, which is x. And we're focused on the 38-degree angle up here. 19 is across from it, which means 19 is opposite. So we look at which function involves opposite and hypotenuse. That's sine. The sine of the angle is opposite over hypotenuse. So sine of 38 degrees equals which side goes on top? Opposite goes on top. In this problem, opposite is 19. Over hypotenuse, x. X is on bottom. It's a two-step problem. Multiply both sides by x. That gives you x times the sine of 38 degrees equals 19. Then divide both sides by the sine of 38 degrees. So x equals 19 divided by sine of 38 degrees, which is about 30.9. So hopefully seeing a few more examples helped you get a better idea for how to decide which function to use and how to figure out what goes on top of the fraction and what goes on bottom and how to solve each equation.